Hello everyone, it's Karen McLaughlin here with you on another Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern for my weekly Facebook Live broadcast. And today's topic is the second part in my diet cleanup series, which is going to be all about ditching the sugar in your life. And I know some of you don't want to hear this, but I hope you'll stick around because I think it's actually more important than you might even realize. So hang tight, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But the first thing I want to do is just make a couple of quick announcements before I forget. The first one is tomorrow is our next Women Wandering in the Woods event. So that's Wednesday at 10 a.m. for about an hour, and we meet down at the start of the Ravine Road Trail in Westdale, just beside Churchill Park. So if you need more information about that, if you'd like to join us, it's totally free. You can bring your dogs, you can bring your kids. It's just, time for us all to hang out, get some nature, get some movement, and socialize a bit. If you need more information, I have an event page up on Facebook, or just direct message me or whatever you want to do, and I can give you more specifics if you need them, but you can just show up at 10 a.m. tomorrow if you want. And the second thing is breaking news. I finally have a YouTube channel. I promised you guys, remember last week when we were talking about jump starting those goals you hadn't quite got around to? I promised you guys I was going to work on that, and I did. So I hope you guys got to work on your goals too, because I followed through with mine. So I do have a YouTube channel now. I'm going to post a link to it below in the comments below this video once we're done here. And I have about half of my previous Facebook Lives up on there now, just over half. I've got 10 of, I think they're 17. I think this one today is number 18. So I'll get the rest of those up as soon as I can. But now, if I'm either when you hear me say, I did this already, go find it, or if you're just wondering what I covered in the past, or you're looking for specific topics, it's all just so easy to find on YouTube. I clearly labeled them all, and I even started a couple of playlists for you guys, so I'll round those out, the playlists out when I get the rest of the videos uploaded, which I'm planning to do by the end of this week. Okay? So now, no matter when you miss them, you can just go right to YouTube and be able to find anything. Or if you want to watch them again, they'll all be there for you. Okay? I'm staring at myself a little bit because this lighting seems really darker than usual to me today, and I can't quite figure out why. So if I'm a little dim, I'm sorry. But that's the way the light is in here today for some reason. Okay. Yeah, so those are the two announcements. So onwards to today's topic. And so my first diet cleanup, if you missed that one, was all about watching what you drink. And that's usually the first thing I start out talking to clients about, because oftentimes we're really drinking a lot more calories than we realize, and usually not particularly nutritious ones either. So that's usually the first area I get people to look at, because really most of the time we should be drinking water. I know you guys think that's old news and it's kind of boring. Most of the truths about health are pretty unsexy. It's maybe that's why we don't get around to doing most of those things. It's boring, but it's true. Okay, so if you didn't catch that one, I would recommend you going back and taking a look at it, because I did cover a lot of information in there, and I actually did talk about sugar in that one a little bit, because sugar is one of the major things we're getting in a lot of our beverages where we're not without a lot of nutrients to go along with them. So I start usually with beverages, and then the second thing I like to get people to do is to just look at sugar itself specifically. And the reason that I do that is, well, first of all, let's go back for a minute. I'm going to just talk about sugar itself, and then we'll get to why. So for many years, like I'm in my mid-40s now, so I was, growing up in the 70s, and a teen in the 80s. And during all that time, really the worst thing that people never really thought sugar was the greatest food in the world for you. But it sort of like, it wasn't really, it wasn't great, but how bad could it be? Like, the worst that was ever said about it was, it had the potential to cause cavities, but we were kind of like, as long as you brush your teeth after you eat sugary foods, you'll be fine. We were sort of reassured that way about it. And the second thing that was said about it was that sugar was a source of empty calories. So, that was really the worst thing that was ever said about it. Empty calories, meaning it's, there's calories there without any nutrition, so it had the potential to displace other foods, healthier foods with actual nutrients in them from your diet. But that was really the worst that was ever said about sugar. And that was true even, when I was in nutrition school in the 90s, we never really talked about sugar all that much. Nothing else more was ever really said about it, except for, in terms of diabetes management and stuff like that. But for the average person, there wasn't a lot of concern. And so that's the old story. And so the new story, which is, I have to warn you guys, like, I'm actually really concerned about this, and I've been doing a lot of research on it lately and reading. And I'm ironically calling it the new story because there was actually a few people way back in the 60s and early 70s who were really sounding the alarm about sugar, even back then. And one man in particular, John Yudkin, he really it destroyed his career, because he was trying to speak out so forcefully against sugar. And he was a senior nutritionist at one of the universities in England, and and he knew his stuff, and he did a lot of research, and he had devoted his life to this, and he really felt strongly about it. And he was demonized, and it ended up destroying his career. But he never gave up trying to spread the message, because he did. I'm going to shift myself because I think my lighting is really crappy here, and I'm trying to find a better spot without having to get up and move. I think that's better. Okay. So, it seems like a new story, but actually it's an old story. This guy was talking about this stuff before I was even born. So, in a nutshell, what a growing number of researchers are saying is that, or other experts that kind of know, biochemistry, metabolism, and that kind of thing, is that sugar actually may be the primary cause of almost all of our chronic Western health diseases, which is pretty frightening. And in particular, the one book that I just finished reading, The Case Against Sugar by Gary Taubes, is not a light read by any stretch of the imagination. If you've ever read anything by Gary before, you might know he's a journalist, but he is very thorough and extensive. His books all have extensive endnotes. He cites, like, I don't even want to know how many research papers, like dozens and dozens, they're probably into the hundreds. He spends like years researching each book that he does. And this book, he makes a very compelling argument that there is evidence to support that sugar is in fact the number one cause of diabetes, obesity, heart disease, hypertension, a lot of our common cancers, and even Alzheimer's disease, which some experts are starting to refer to as type 3 diabetes. So it's pretty scary stuff. It's very sobering, and this book really kind of put a chill into me. And I think because we grew up, I grew up in that era where we were, we were really kind of patted on the back. Oh yeah, sugar's not great, but what's the worst it can do to you? You might end up with a couple cavities, but you'll be fine. So now there is a ton of, I really, some of you guys know I have a master's degree in nutrition, so I really find that this evidence is very compelling and it's very concerning, and I think I would love everybody to, if you don't want to read the whole book, The Case Against Sugar, I'm going to post a link to an article that Gary Taubes wrote a number of years back, which was sort of a precursor to this one, called "Is Sugar Toxic?" I'm trying to remember. It's published on the New York Times site or some. Anyway, I'm going to link you up. So if you want the short version of this very long book that took me a couple weeks to plow through, and I'm a really quick reader, I'll link you up there, and it's a good start. But I really, my personal opinion after reading a lot of this stuff is it is very scary, and there is a lot of compelling evidence against sugar being a root cause of many of our major health problems today. And I don't want to get into, if you want more about the metabolism and how that all actually works, you can certainly find it in that book, The Case Against Sugar, or there's other good articles online. And the one I'm going to link you up to will point you in the direction of a few more if you want to keep digging down the rabbit hole like I did. Just really quickly though, like the reason that they think sugar may be particularly bad for us metabolically is that unlike other starches, which break down into just glucose, sugar is made up of a molecule of glucose and a molecule of fructose put together, and so when it's digested they split in two. So it's half glucose, half fructose, and it's that fructose piece that seems to be causing a lot of problems metabolically, because it's the fructose part is digested in a different metabolic pathway than glucose. Okay, so that's just a very quick hint of why they think that sugar may have the potential to cause all these problems that it does. And just we're eating so much of it. Back in the early 1800s, we ate, I remember reading it was about 12 pounds a day. 12 pounds a day, goodness. 12 pounds a year. 12 pounds a day would be bad. Okay, so early 1800s, 12 pounds a year per capita sugar consumption. Today, in Canada, it's 88 pounds per year per capita. So that's what the average person is consuming. And my American friends, I'm sorry, but you guys are eating a little bit more than that even. And what really has frightened me in particular is the statistic about teenage boys, because I have two of them in my house right now. And this Stats Canada says that the average teenage boy is consuming 138 pounds of sugar a year. 138. And most of that is from pop or soda for my American friends. But that just scares the crap out of me. That is crazy. That's 2.65 pounds a week of sugar. That's a lot by anyone's standards. So, as a society, we've just developed a crazy level of taste for sugar. And I think it's so ubiquitous. I think that's part of the reason why we almost don't think about it, can't believe there couldn't be anything that wrong with it, because it's everywhere. One of the statistics I read said that in the average grocery store today, over 80% of the products for sale contain added sugar. And we're not just talking about the stuff that's obvious, like candy and donuts and pop and ice cream. We're talking, and some of you guys know this already who are a bit more aware, but just to make the point, we're talking about your pasta sauces, breads, peanut butter, salad dressings, pretty much like anything that comes in a package. The majority of those products contain added sugar. So, so just to drive the point home, we're actually 1 in 5 calories that we're eating today is sugar. And I don't know about you, that doesn't sound good to me. 1 in 5, so about 20% of our calories are sugar. Now, some of those are naturally occurring sugars. Most of the stats don't separate it out, but a significant portion of that is the added sugars. And it's because they're everywhere. It's getting to be so hard to avoid them. So that's the problem in a nutshell. And one thing I'm going to say straight up is nobody really knows what is a safe level of sugar to consume. And even Gary Taubes, at the end of his very lengthy the book said he doesn't know. He's like, there's no evidence. We don't know what is safe. So, based on our best guess is, the closer to zero of added sugar, sucrose, and high fructose corn syrup and that kind of stuff that you're eating, the closer to zero, the better off you're probably going to be. And the World Health Organization, goodness, I'm trying to remember. I believe what the World Health Organization has said is that optimally people would consume less than 5% of their total calories from sugar, and we're at about 20%. So we've got a ways to go. So there's two reasons I think, though, that watching your sugar consumption is important. So one of them is what I've already alluded to, all these chronic health concerns. And that's where, there is still some gray area, and that's why, people, like in the sugar industry, for example, are really attacking these people who are speaking out against sugar, because let's face it, this is a big money-making industry. And it's really hard to get, the thing about nutrition is it's really hard to get definitive evidence. But there, like I said, I believe the case is extremely strong, and it makes, not only is the argument very strong based on evidence, like sort of that circumstantial evidence, but it makes sense from a metabolic perspective what people are trying to say and why it would be damaging in this way. But chronic effects aside, sugar actually has a lot of immediate effects on your system that are not that great either, and that we actually know these ones, like everybody's experienced them, right? You guys know if you eat like a sugary dessert, or you have like a coffee with like 3 spoonfuls of sugar in it, you get that sugar high and then you get that sugar crash, right? So it definitely wreaks havoc with your energy levels, and that along with that we know like that's affecting like your insulin levels, like this spike and the crash, and so it's definitely wreaking some havoc on your pancreas, which has to do that work. And also, that along with that sugar roller coaster ride of crappy, like, energy level going up and down, your mood tends to go with it, right? So, if nothing else, it's a disruption to your life in that it's affecting your energy and your mood. So we don't want those effects either, totally regardless of what the chronic health effects are. But I'm just very concerned about that, because it's like, sugar might, some of these researchers are saying, well, sugar's not an acute poison, but it's, it's a long-term poison, it's going to kill you. It takes a while to do it, but it's going to do it very effectively in the end. So, like I said, if you want more information about the really hardcore scientific piece of this, I'll link you up to a couple things that will take you further along that line. But for the people who aren't really interested in that, I'm just going to move along to talking about what do we actually do about this in terms of how can we get away from eating so much sugar. And straight up, I'm going to say it can be really hard, because we do know, and there's actually a whole chapter in the book that I just read on, is sugar a food or a drug? And the jury's still out on whether technically it could be defined as a drug, but we do very clearly know that it affects our brain in a way that other addictive substances affect our brain. So consuming sugar lights up the same part of your brain that ingesting cocaine does, okay? So right there, that'll tell you this is a substance that has a strong force on us, right? So it's not, I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do, but I'm just want to say I think it's really important. And I guess before I get into the how we can, what are some strategies we can do to cut our sugar consumption, I just want to tell you a little bit about my story, because as I already mentioned, I grew up in the 70s, and I ate a ton of sugar as a kid, a ton. Like, I look back now and I'm like really frightened, actually, because my day started with usually one of those horrible pre-sweetened cereals, and at lunch I would for sure have some kind of like dessert with my life, and I wouldn't have a particularly healthy lunch. It would be like white bread with peanut butter on white bread and very little in the way of fruits and vegetables, and then there would always be like some kind of cookies or something like that. There was always candy around, lots of desserts and stuff like that. Like a lot of sugar. And it didn't get much better. I stopped eating quite as much in my teens, but when I went off to school, and pretty embarrassingly, here I am in nutrition school, but you know what, I would be studying at night, and I would have like a huge I had one of those massive mugs that I would make a tea in, and then I would put like several spoonfuls of sugar in my tea, and I would snack on sugary, like often like some kind of cereal that had some kind of sugariness to it. I know it's terrible, but I'm just telling you. So I really started out in life. I don't know whether I would say I was sugar addicted, but possibly. I mean, I ate a very high level of sugar for sure. Then by my like early to mid 20s is when I started to probably taper it off a bit, but not necessarily super consciously getting the sugar out in the way that I am now, but you know, just less carbs and more vegetables and that kind of thing. But what I did a couple years ago is, I guess it was the January of 2015, so about a year and a half ago, I went 30 days without any sugar. So no added sugars of any kind. So not just sugar, like not just table sugar, but no honey, no maple syrup, no molasses, none of those like natural sweeteners either, no artificial sweeteners, and no straight up fruit juice. You were allowed to like put a little bit, if you were making like a stir fry, you could add a little bit of orange juice to it, but no like straight up orange juice. I did that for a whole month, and you know what? Like, it wasn't actually that hard. The thing that I learned was once you like get it out of your system in the first few days, you don't really want it anymore. Like, the interesting thing is, as soon as you go back to eating again, you really want it again. So that there's that suggestion of how it's sort of addictive. But that was my experience. Is once I cut it out, and I thought, oh my God, this is gonna be the hardest thing I've ever done. But it really wasn't, because after a few days, I just didn't really want it anymore. So it seems like if you're caught in the kind of grip of it right now, and you're like, if you're one of those people who's like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine going even a whole day without my little sugary treat, like, I'm really talking to you right now, because you could probably benefit the most of anybody from this. So it's not, it seems impossible, but it's not. And it's one of those things, like I've pretty much, some of you guys know this too, I hardly eat any grains anymore, so I hardly ever eat bread. And if you had told me 5 years ago that I would not eat bread anymore, I'd be like, are you insane? But again, like, I don't miss it now that I don't eat it, and when I do have it now, it's like, the idea of the bread is better than the actual taste of it, if you know what I mean. So I'll have a piece and I go, it doesn't taste like I thought it would, it wasn't that good, so I hardly ever have it anymore. Okay, same kind of idea with sugar, and our taste buds are so wired for it that once you stop eating so much, things will start to taste sweeter to you when you do have something that's sugary, so you won't want it as much anymore. Okay, so the practical ways that we can cut sugar out. Number one, before we even think about what we're eating, the first thing that I want you guys to make sure you're doing is like attending to your other fundamentals that I'm always talking about. So make sure you're getting enough sleep. Make sure you're getting enough movement in your day, because if you're not getting those two things, you know you're setting yourself up for the kind of like mental environment where you're going to start craving sugar. I know the times I end up craving it the most is when I'm exhausted and cranky because I'm so exhausted, and or else if I haven't got enough movement, because that really helps keep stress levels under control and keeps your mood better. So if you're not attending to those things, you're really setting yourself up to have a harder time with this. So please make sure you're getting enough sleep and you're getting enough movement. And the second thing is, make sure you're getting enough fat and protein in your diet. So all 3 meals, make sure you're getting enough fat and protein, because if you're not, that's another thing that can really set you up for sugar cravings. And in particular, like a lot of us don't tend to eat very much in the way of protein and fat at breakfast. If you're one of those people who's still eating a bagel or a muffin or a bowl of cereal or anything like that as breakfast without, and especially if you're downing it with like a glass of juice or something, or coffee with sugar in it, you're setting yourself up again for a crash where you're going to be craving stuff. So make sure you get a good quality protein and good quality fat at every meal. So if you eat animal proteins, those are great. Meat, fish, poultry. If you don't, eggs are great. And if you don't eat animal products, I would encourage you even more than everybody else to get the best quality eggs that you can buy. So ones that are raised in small flocks, and the chickens get to wander around and eat grubs and that kind of stuff, because the eggs are just such a better quality. Eggs are a fantastic quality of protein. And other things you can throw in, nuts and seeds and stuff like that, are pretty good. They're not going to give you as much protein density as those other things, but they're going to give you some. So make sure that you're getting the protein and good quality fats. So one of my tricks is for lunch, like most days, I have at least between a half to a full avocado at lunchtime, packed full of really healthy fats, and they're so filling. And I find that totally stops my afternoon kind of slump feeling. So I'd be surprised by just what attending to those two things, getting the sleep and the movement, and making sure you're getting enough fat and protein at your meals, that can really head a lot of problems off at the pass right there. So once you've done those things, the next step is really and this is the hard part, taking a hard look at where is sugar coming from in your diet right now. So some of the things I tell people right off the bat is, okay, are you drinking coffee or tea? Are you sweetening those? Because if you are, please stop. So if you're putting either sugar or honey or whatever into your hot beverages to sweeten them, I would really recommend weaning yourself off of that first, because especially if you have several cups in a day, that's really contributing significantly to your total sugar load. And for people who think, I can never do that, way back when, I used to be 2 spoonfuls of sugar in my coffee gal, and now I just put either cream or coconut milk in my coffee. I haven't sweetened it for ages. So it is possible, and even my husband, he did that whole sugar experiment thing with me, and he was always a 2 spoonfuls of sugar in his coffee guy, and by the end of the month, he went, after we were done, the next day he went to put sugar in his coffee, and he tasted it, he's like, this doesn't taste good to me anymore. So now he just drinks his black. So it's totally about adjusting your taste, but this is a really good place to start. Oh my goodness, I don't know why I'm getting so much shadows on the light. I'm sorry guys if you can't see me very well. I don't know what's up with the lighting in here today. Okay, so start with your coffee, tea, anything like that you're regularly adding sugar to. Stop doing that. After that, it's really about reading labels. Hopefully, if you've been listening to me for long enough, buying the freshest foods possible is going to cut out a lot of your sugars, because stuff that doesn't come with a nutrition label on it is usually the best. So, your fresh meat, fish, poultry, your fresh produce, that stuff is going to be great choices because there's no added sugar in there. Of course, fruit has some naturally occurring sugars, but those really aren't the ones I'm talking about right now. So, the more you're picking those fresher foods, the easier this is going to be. But if you are buying anything that comes in a box or a package or a bottle, please read, even if it's from a quote unquote natural health company, please take a good hard look at the label to see what the sugar content is, because it doesn't matter what kind of product it is. They're pumping sugar into everything. When I did that 30-day no sugar thing, and I had to check every label of everything, because you were not allowed zero. There was no, even if it was 1 gram of sugar, you couldn't have it. So it was a bit of an eye-opener. And I don't buy a lot of packaged foods, but the ones that I did, it was Okay, this is no good. So it can take a little searching, but there are definitely, it's possible to find products out there. The big question really is it better to do this cold turkey and just go cut all the sugar out, or kind of just wean yourself off gradually? And I think it can be tricky to know. Like for myself, I know it was a very helpful experience to go and do that 30 days. It really made me understand what my relationship with sugar had been. It made me see what the effects were on my body. It made me see how I didn't really want it anymore after I stopped eating it for a little while. So it was a very informative and educational learning experience for me to do that. But I know not everybody wants to. The more of a pull you feel like sugar has on you, the more worthwhile it might be to try and do something like that, though, to be honest. Like, the more you're thinking, oh my gosh, I could never do that, I could never live without sugar even for 2 days, probably the more benefit you're going to get from trying to do a 30-day thing like that. I personally, like, I wouldn't have, like, really believed what it was like until I experienced it for myself. But, you know, if you think there's no way I could ever do that, I'm going to challenge you a bit though. Like, don't, you know, actually consider it for a while. It's not actually as hard as you think it will be. The first few days are hard, but the rest of it wasn't that hard. But if for whatever reason you're just like, there's no way, nice try, Karen, but there's no freaking way, I'm just going to do this 30 days without any sugar at all. So then your other option is to try and wean yourself off of it gradually. And I guess in a way I feel like for some people this is going to be harder because think about it, you know, like with alcoholics, we don't, if they're drinking 12 bottles of beer a day, we don't say, okay, start drinking 11, and then, you know, in a couple weeks, then drink 10. It's a cold turkey thing. So depending how addicted, really, you think you are, it may be better to go cold turkey. But if you're just thinking, you know, sugar doesn't feel like it has this massive pull on my life, but I would like to cut it out because I do feel that these health concerns are valid and I don't want that in my life anymore, then maybe gradually weaning yourself off of it is a better way to go. So starting with the hot beverages, like I said, you know, getting out of your coffee and tea and stuff you're drinking a lot is a good first step. And then just, I mean, you guys don't need me to tell you, like, cut out the donuts and the sweet pastries and cookies and all that stuff. Like, that's, you know, we all know there's sugar there. But for the other stuff, you really just want to start reading labels because, like I said, it's in everything. It's in everything. So if you start poking around, if you have, like, say, favorite, I don't know, pasta sauce that you like, and you discover it's full of sugar, if you start looking around, you'll eventually find one. And I can't, unfortunately, this is not an area where I'm really great about saying, oh, this brand, because I make the easiest thing to do, guys, is just make all your food from scratch, because then you can control it. But if you're not willing to do that, or you can't do it, you're going to have to do a bit more hunting around. But the good thing is more and more people are demanding these products, so there are more and more coming out that are sugar-free, which is nice. So that's really what it comes down to, is just gradually replacing stuff. And just getting out of the habit of having it, you know, don't buy gummy bears anymore. And I know if you have kids, this stuff is particularly difficult because you're not going to be too popular with your kids. And I don't honestly know what to say if you have younger kids. I would feel like I was in a bit more of a conundrum about this. Because my boys are practically grown up, I'm actually feel like I'm caught between a bit of a rock and a hard place with them right now, because I'm reading the statistic that teenage boys are consuming 138 pounds of sugar a year. And also I have very little control over what they're eating. I'm serving them healthy meals at home, but a lot of the times they're not eating at home anymore, and even if they eat the meal that I prepare for them, then they go out with their friends and eat more other stuff after that, which is usually not necessarily the best choices that I would like them to have. But and part of that is being a teenager, but also I am really concerned about, like, that 138 pounds of sugar a year. Like, it's an insane level. And aside from the pop or soda, the other big thing I find, I know my boys do, is they're really, I've told them about it, but they're really, really into the Powerades and the Gatorades and all those sports drinks. And so every time they go to the gym and work out for 45 minutes, you know, they get a huge bottle of sports drink, and those things have a ton of sugar in them too. And I've talked to them about it, but they think it's cool. So, you know, so I'm struggling with that here. So, you know, the best you can do is really set an example and start talking to your kids and your spouse. Maybe your spouse isn't going to be too thrilled with this either. So, you know, start talking to them about it. And I think if you can get anybody, you know, in your life who's resistant to actually experience what it's like to go without sugar for a few days and how they feel, like how you don't get that cranky and you don't get that up and down energy level and mood thing going, like it's a bit of an awakening. But we are, as a society, totally under the grip, unfortunately, of sugar right now because it's everywhere. And it's so socially acceptable, you know. And so if you're like the person who's like, oh, I don't really want my kids to eat that much sugar, you're kind of seen as a downer. And it's made me think, doing all this reading has made me think really long and hard about, I wonder how it came into being that all of our celebrations came to be centered around sugar. You know, kids' birthday parties and all the birthday cake and the, you know, and then we hand out goodie bags of candy afterwards, and, you know, Halloween, Christmas, like they're all really centered around a lot of high sugar foods. And I kind of wonder why that is, and, you know, maybe just because of that feel-good effect it has on our brain, and we've associated sugar with that for a long while, and so then that associated that feel-good thing with, you know, that's part of celebrating, so let's have sugar. I don't know. So there's no easy answers here about that kind of stuff. And certainly the more you cut out sugar out of your daily life, you know, I think the more space you have for a little bit of it in those celebration periods. But it's a tough call right now. You know, the people who are raising these concerns are like, we really don't know what level is safe. So there, you know, a couple of these researchers I was reading, they wouldn't touch sugar with a 10-foot pole if you were holding, maybe if you threatened to kill them if they didn't eat it, that might be because they think it's going to kill them if they do eat it eventually. But it was very eye-opening. These people really are very, very in belief that the research shows that it is that potentially hazardous to us. So I know I had a fourth idea here. So just to recap, the first three things was make sure you're getting enough sleep and movement, and make sure you're getting enough fat and protein in your meals. And then either, you know, make up your mind. Do you want to try and do this cold turkey, or you want to do the weaning yourself slowly off approach, and just be honest with yourself about which one of those you think might work better for you. And so the fourth thing is just a caution to not go trying to replace those sweet foods with like artificial sweeteners and stuff like that, because now there's a ton of debate out there about what artificial sweeteners may or may not do in terms of how detrimental they could be to our health, and I don't want to get into that right now. I personally do not ever use artificial sweeteners, but you can do your own research on that and make your own decision. I don't even like that. I can taste like the stuff a mile away. It tastes gross to me, so that's a deal breaker totally regardless of whether, you know, it might be a potential carcinogen or anything like that. But the other concern I have with artificial sweeteners is it's not curbing your taste for sweet. So even if you're using, oh my goodness, the natural, why am I not thinking of it right now? Natural calorie-free sweeteners, stevia, that's it. It's still, you're still fostering that taste for sweetness. And so I think that that's really detrimental overall. And that's why I'm, really concerned when I see people giving their young children apple juice as a drink instead of, if you see, we've all seen that where people have put like apple juice in like toddlers' bottles and infants' baby bottles, right? And aside from what that sugar is doing to them immediately, it's fostering a taste for sweet. And so we really just need to curb that, because you will find over time, and it may be hard to believe right this red hot minute, but you will gradually lose your taste for sweet. And it's not like, I'm not going to say I never want to eat a cookie or a dessert or anything anymore, but I want it far less often than I did in the past. And a lot of things, I taste them now, like if I'm out somewhere and somebody offers me something and I have a little bit, and I'm like, oh, that's way too sweet. So your taste will adjust. And it's been an interesting journey for me, because I really do find like I really want, I was, aside from sugar, I was just like totally like carb. I was a carb girl. I was totally into carbs. And so the less and less of sugar and carbs I eat, the less I want. So, I have my moments, but in general, I can say that that's true. So this can be kind of an interesting journey, and it can be, I know, a little frightening for some of you, because sugar does make us feel good. In that minute that we consume it, we're getting like a relief, a comfort feeling. So letting go of that can be, or even the idea of letting go of that can be really hard. So I guess the fifth thing that just came to me that I would get you to think about is, how can you comfort yourself without sugar? It's possible. So make a list of stuff you can do that will make you feel good. I'm going to suggest moving your body, right? No surprise. For most people that works. But anything, like I've also mentioned, like one of my go-to things when I want something comforting, especially in the winter or when it's chilly, is a nice cup of herbal tea, because I have quite a few different ones that I really like that I don't feel like I need to put any sweetener in. And it's just something for me. Hot things. I'm a person who likes hot baths. I like saunas. I like, so hot things are comforting to me for whatever reason. Probably because I'm a cold person. I'm always cold. But figure out what those things are for you, because you can actually comfort yourself without sugar, believe it or not. And, maybe you need to go talk to a friend. Maybe, I don't know. But just figure it out. Write some things down. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this. I'm a bit stymied because it's so, it does seem so daunting, and it is so ubiquitous, and it is so accepted. And yet some of the stuff that I'm reading has just literally made my blood run cold. Like, it's pretty scary stuff. And so, like I said when I started out, we have no idea. We can't know 100% for sure if we're right about this or not, but I would say the evidence is pretty compelling and very damning on the side of sugar. So, and really I figure, what do you have to lose by giving up sugar? There's no downside to giving up sugar, really. At least if there, except for the immediate pleasure in the moment, but we're going to figure out other ways that we can comfort ourselves without sugar, right? So we don't need no sugar around here. And I'm not trying to say, there are some people out there, some of these researchers, who literally never would ever touch the teeniest, tiniest drop of it again. That's how strong their concern is over it. But, that doesn't necessarily have to be the way you need to go. If you could even, those people back in the 1800s who were eating 12 pounds of sugar a year, we know for a fact they did not have the rate of disease that we have now. So clearly, well, I don't know whether I have the right to say this, but that would suggest that a little bit of sugar is probably not going to be hugely detrimental to your health. But the problem is what is a little bit and where do we draw the line? And it's so easy to go over that line in our society. So I guess that's where I'm going to leave you guys at with it. I hope you found this helpful. And like I said, I'm going to link you up to the articles, or the one article in particular that's online. And I know there was something else that, I'm going to link you up to my YouTube channel too so that you can find that. But if you're really feeling at all interested in this topic, I would encourage you to do a little bit more reading on it because it's quite fascinating. And like I said, even all the time I went through nutrition school, we weren't talking about this stuff at all, even though there's these guys way back in the 60s and 70s who had started sounding the alarm about this stuff, but they basically just got crushed beneath the powers that be. There's very strong lobbying for sugar in North America, so this whole scenario reminds me a lot about what happened with the tobacco industry, actually. So you can take that or leave it as it may be, but that's sort of how it strikes me. And as always, like, if you guys want more help with this stuff, you know where to find me. On Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. You can email me at yourfitnessgroove@gmail.com. Private message me here. I don't care how you want to get in touch. I'm always happy to help you guys out. And I think that is all I have to say for today. Just for anybody who missed me at the very beginning, just a reminder that our next Women Wandering in the Woods is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and that my YouTube channel is finally in existence. And I'm going to link it up in the comments below here, so if you want to go back and find any of my previous videos, you can now do that. Okay, that's it for today. Have a great week, guys, and enjoy your new sugar-free or sugar-reduced life. You guys are all sweet enough already. Okay, bye for now.